The war between humans and the Threxan Empire had burned across the stars for more than a decade. Entire planets were turned into dust. Every victory left both sides weaker. Every battle took something that could never be replaced. On one forgotten colony world, a storm of fire had ended only hours ago. The ground still smoked. Broken ships lay across the plains like skeletons. Among the ruins walked Captain Ryan Hale of the Terran Marines, searching for survivors. The wind carried the smell of ash and melted metal. Hale moved carefully, his rifle raised. His squad followed behind, silent, tired, and covered in dust. Then a faint sound reached them. Not human. A wet, broken hiss. They followed the noise and found it. A Threxan soldier, wounded, crawling through the ashes. The alien's armor was cracked, its green blood marking every step. It looked up as Hale approached, its eyes wide with fear. Ryan raised his weapon. Orders were clear, no prisoners. The Threxans were known for torture, for ambushes, for pretending to be dead just to strike again. Every Terran Marine had lost friends because of them. Hale's finger rested on the trigger. One shot and it would be over. But something stopped him. For a moment, the captain looked closer. The alien's breathing was shallow. Its claws trembled as it tried to move. There was no hate in its eyes, only terror. It wasn't a monster now, it was just a dying being trying to live. Ryan lowered his rifle. His squad froze. "Sir." "What are you doing?" Corporal Diaz whispered. Hale ignored him. He reached into his belt and pulled out a water pack. The alien flinched when he stepped closer. Hale slowly placed the pack near its claws and stepped back. The Threxan hesitated, then drank. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the wind seemed to stop. Finally, Hale said quietly, "He's done fighting." Diaz frowned. "Sir, Command said—" "I know what Command said." Hale cut him off. "But I'm saying this one's finished. We treat him, then we move." The squad exchanged nervous glances. No one argued further. They built a small shelter from wreckage and treated the Threxan's wounds with basic medgel. It hissed in pain, but did not resist. When night came, Hale sat near the alien. The two looked at each other across the flickering light of a burning transport. "You understand me?" Hale asked. The alien blinked slowly, then nodded. Its voice was harsh and broken. "Why? Mercy?" Hale stared into the flames. "Because someone has to stop the killing." The alien tilted its head, confused. Mercy was not a word that existed in Threxan language. They understood victory and defeat, but not forgiveness. Before dawn, Terran evac ships arrived. The squad loaded the wounded Threxan into a medical pod. Some of the crew protested, but Hale overruled them. "He's a prisoner of war," he said firmly, "and he's still alive." As the transport rose into the dark sky, Hale looked down at the ruined colony. The stars above seemed cold and endless. He didn't know why he had spared that alien. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was hope. Whatever the reason, he could not shake the feeling that something important had just happened. Something far bigger than one battle. Far above the battlefield, orbiting satellites, some Terran, some Threxan, had recorded the entire scene. The image of a human captain offering water to his enemy would soon travel faster than light. Within days, it reached Threxan High Command. The generals watched in silence as the footage played on a holoscreen. The human could have killed their soldier. Instead, he helped him. The room filled with uneasy whispers. "Is it a trick?" one asked. "Propaganda," said another, but not everyone agreed. Among them sat Counselor Varek, an older Threxan who had grown tired of endless war. He replayed the moment again and again. The water, the trembling claws, the calm human face. "This one," Varek murmured. "This human sees beyond hate." Across the stars, the story began to spread. Some Threxans laughed at it. Others called it weakness. But a few began to wonder. Could the humans, the so-called Deathworlders, truly be capable of mercy? Back on the Terran ship, Hale filed his report and said nothing about what he had done. He expected trouble from his superiors, maybe even punishment, but orders never came. The war was too chaotic. One small act on a ruined planet didn't seem to matter, yet somewhere deep inside, Hale knew it did. He just didn't know how much. Because far away, in the dark halls of the Threxan Empire, the image of one human lowering his weapon had already begun to change minds. It was a seed, small, fragile, but alive. A seed that would one day grow into something powerful enough to reshape two civilizations. Hookend. Far above, unseen satellites recorded everything, and the Threxan High Council would soon learn of the human who spared one of their own. The war between the Terran Federation and the Threxan Empire finally ended 3 years later. Not with victory, not with peace. Just silence. Both sides were too exhausted to keep fighting. Their fleets were broken, their armies scattered. Every world carried scars, craters, wrecks, and memories that would not fade. Captain Ryan Hale was no longer a soldier. He had returned to Earth, tired and haunted by what he had seen. To him, the war was just another chapter in humanity's long history of survival. He didn't know that one small act he made on a ruined planet had already begun to echo far beyond the stars. Far across space, on the burning sands of Threx Prime, a wounded Threxan soldier awoke in a recovery chamber. His name was Karen of the 9th Legion, the same alien Hale had spared. Doctors had repaired his body, but not his mind. Every night, he dreamed of that moment, the human who could have ended his life but didn't. He remembered the water, the calm voice, the strange words. Because someone has to stop the killing. Those words burned inside him like fire. When the healers questioned him, Karen told them everything. He described how the human offered him life instead of death. How he had seen compassion, a concept the Threxans had long forgotten. But his commanders laughed. "You were weak," said the general. "The humans spared you only to shame you. They wanted you alive to show Threxans can beg." Karen clenched his claws but said nothing. He knew what he had seen. It wasn't mockery. It was mercy. And that single truth began to eat away at everything he had been taught. Months passed. Karen returned to civilian life, living among the ruins of cities that once glowed with pride. The Empire had fallen into chaos. Veterans wandered aimlessly. People cursed the warlords who had led them to ruin, and in every dark corner Karen told his story. He told it in whispers, afraid yet unable to stay silent. He spoke of the human captain who looked at him not as an enemy, but as a living being. At first no one listened, then a few did, then dozens. They called it the human's choice. In the markets and training camps, in the temples and academies, his story began to spread. Some mocked it, others denied it, but it refused to die. One night, Karen stood in front of a small crowd of veterans. They were broken soldiers like him, lost, hopeless, tired of hate. He looked at them and said, "The human showed me what our leaders never could, that mercy is not weakness. It is strength." A silence followed. Then someone in the crowd said quietly, "If that is true, then maybe we can change." From that day, Karen's story became more than a rumor. It became a movement. They called themselves the Order of Hale, named after the human who had shown compassion in war. They studied human writings, human philosophy, and anything that explained how a species from a death world could still show kindness. Their ideas spread faster than the government could silence them. Mercy is strength, they preached. Forgiveness is power. For the Threxan High Council, it was dangerous. The Empire had always ruled through fear and dominance. But now their people were starting to question that. Arrests followed. The Order's meetings were banned. Karen was declared a traitor. But the Order didn't stop. They went underground. They painted human words on walls in the night. Kindness is not surrender. The strong choose mercy. Every time the government erased the graffiti, new ones appeared. The idea could not be killed. Meanwhile, far from Threx in space, Hale worked at a Terran relief station helping rebuild war-torn colonies. He never knew that his name had become a legend among the very enemies he once fought. One night, a transmission reached him, encrypted, faint, and alien. The signal repeated in broken English. "To the human named Hale, your mercy changed us. We seek understanding, not war. Please respond." Hale stared at the message in disbelief. It was signed by a Threxan he thought was long dead. Karen. He played it again and again, trying to make sense of it. Could one moment of compassion really ripple across an entire empire? The Terran Council thought it was a trap. They ordered him to ignore it. But Hale couldn't. Something deep inside told him this was real. He sent a short reply. "If peace is what you seek, I will listen." In the months that followed, quiet communications passed between Hale and Karen. They shared stories, questions, and hopes. Through those talks, Hale learned something incredible. The Order of Hale had grown into a vast underground movement, spreading to hundreds of Threxan worlds. People had begun to change. Warlords were losing power. And on the horizon, a new idea was being born. A society not ruled by fear, but by choice. Still, danger was everywhere. Karen warned him, "They call us heretics. If they find out we speak, they will kill us both." Hale replied softly, "Then we make it worth the risk." For the first time in Threxan history, a human name was spoken not with hatred, but with hope. Ryan Hale, the human who spared an enemy, had Beck. Years passed. The stars grew quiet again, but the silence was uneasy. The war between humans and Threxans had ended, yet its shadow still hung heavy over both civilizations. On Threx Prime, the Empire was crumbling. Old warlords fought for power. Cities struggled to rebuild. Entire worlds were starving. But deep beneath that chaos, something new was growing. It began with whispers. Stories told in the night about a human who spared a Threxan. Many thought it was just a myth, a comforting lie to hide from the pain of defeat. But for others, especially the young, it became a spark of hope. Karen, now older and walking with a limp, continued to spread the story. He spoke in secret halls and ruined temples far from the eyes of the Empire. He told them about Captain Ryan Hale, the human who refused to kill. At first, his words were met with disbelief. "Humans, merciful?" One Threxan scoffed. "They burned our fleets. They destroyed our colonies." Karen nodded. Yes, they fought fiercely. But one of them, one man, chose mercy when he didn't have to. He described Hale's calm voice, the water offered to a dying enemy, the way the human looked at him without hate. And slowly, the room grew quiet. For a species that had built its empire on dominance and fear, the idea of mercy was terrifying and beautiful. A movement began to take shape. The followers called themselves the Order of Hale. They wore small metal pendants shaped like a drop of water, the symbol of the life Hale had given. They believed that true strength came not from cruelty, but from control. That power was not the ability to destroy, but to choose not to. Their message was simple. Mercy is not surrender. It is mastery over fear. For the first time in centuries, Threxans began questioning their own ways. Why had endless war brought them nothing but ruin? What if compassion could rebuild what hate had destroyed? The government saw the order as a threat. They declared it an illegal cult. Agents raided meeting halls and arrested speakers. Some were executed as traitors. But like seeds scattered by the wind, the order only grew. Their words spread through merchants, travelers, even soldiers. A commander might whisper to his troops before battle, "Fight with honor and mercy, if you can." Small changes began appearing across Threxan space. Captured enemies were no longer executed immediately. Civilians were spared during uprisings. For a people raised to show no pity, these were revolutionary acts. And at the heart of it all was a name passed from mouth to mouth. Ryan Hale, the human who showed mercy. Meanwhile, on a distant world of the Terran Federation, Hale lived a quiet life. He never returned to war. He taught young cadets about leadership, but he never spoke about the Threxan he spared. In his heart, that moment was personal. It was not about glory, it was about conscience. But one night, as he looked at the stars from his home's balcony, He received a private message. It was encrypted with an alien signature. He opened it carefully. The message was short, written in broken Terran language. Captain Hale, your kindness has grown. The order of Hale spreads among my people. They seek peace, but the old ones want war again. We need you. It was signed, Karen. Hale stared at the message, unsure what to think. He hadn't heard that name in years. He thought the Threxan had forgotten him. But now his act of mercy had become a movement. He forwarded the message to the Terran Council, but their response was cold. We do not interfere in internal alien matters. Observe only. But Hale couldn't ignore it. He felt a strange pull, a duty he didn't understand. Far away in the Threxan capital, the High Council argued. Reports showed growing unrest. The younger generation refused to obey the old warlords. Some soldiers were even refusing orders to slaughter civilians, and everywhere graffiti appeared. Mercy is power. The human way. Hale lives. Councillor Varric slammed his fist on the table. These ideas are poison. They will destroy us. But one younger voice spoke quietly from the shadows. It was Ilar, a rising commander and one of the few who had seen war firsthand. He said, perhaps these ideas will save us. The room fell silent. Ilar had lost his family in the final battles. He knew what hate had done. And now, hearing about humans who had spared his kind, it shook him to his core. He turned to the council. Let me meet this human. Let me see if the story is true. The elders refused at first, but the empire was breaking apart, and Ilar's influence among the military was growing. They finally agreed, partly out of fear. A secret message was sent across the void. It carried a single invitation. To Captain Hale of the Terran Federation, the Threxan Empire requests your presence on Threx Prime. For the first time in our history, we wish to speak of peace. When Hale read those words, he felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. He had never wanted to be a symbol. He had never planned to change anyone. But somehow a single act of mercy had grown into something unstoppable. He looked up at the stars, toward the Threxan system. And quietly he said to himself, then maybe it's time I see what mercy has built. Hook end. As his ship prepared for launch, Hale had no idea that not everyone on Threx Prime wanted peace. In the shadows, the old warlords were already planning to make sure. The human never left their world alive. The stars glowed faintly outside the viewport of the Terran diplomatic vessel Horizon. For Captain Ryan Hale, the journey to Threx Prime felt longer than any war mission he had ever taken. He sat alone in the observation deck, watching the blue light of Earth fade behind him. He was older now, his hair streaked with gray, his face marked by time, but his eyes still carried the same calm strength. He had no idea what waited for him on the alien homeworld. The Threxans had invited him for peace talks, but not everyone wanted peace. As the ship entered Threxan space, Hale saw something breathtaking through the glass. The planet below shimmered like a broken jewel, oceans of green mist, cities rebuilt over black scars, fleets of ships moving like silver insects in the upper atmosphere. The pilot's voice came through the comms. Captain, Threx Prime Control has granted us landing clearance. They've rolled out a military escort. Expected, Hale replied calmly. Let's make sure this meeting stays peaceful. Inside, though, his heart beat faster. He had faced alien fleets, command failures, and death itself. But this was different. He wasn't carrying weapons this time, only hope. When the Horizon touched down on the Threxan capital platform, Hale stepped out slowly. The air was dense and warm, carrying a strange metallic scent. And then he saw them, thousands of Threxans, lining the streets in silence. Some wore uniforms, others civilian clothes. All watched the human in awe, no jeers, no hatred, only quiet respect. The Threxan guards saluted in their own way, claws pressed to their chests. It was the highest honor they could show. Beside them stood a familiar figure, older, scarred, but unmistakable, Karen. His once green armor was now ceremonial white. His eyes brightened when he saw Hale. Captain, he said, bowing slightly. You came, Hale smiled faintly. You asked. How could I refuse? Karen's voice trembled with pride. My people have waited for this moment. The order has grown, but he glanced nervously at the guards around them. Not everyone is happy to see you, I figured, Hale replied. Let's get this done. Inside the grand hall of the Twin Suns, the Threxan High Council awaited. It was a vast, glowing chamber filled with alien symbols and banners. Each counselor sat on a raised platform, their faces hidden behind silver masks. In the center stood Commander Elar, the young leader who had requested Hale's presence. When Hale entered, all voices fell silent. Every eye turned toward him, the human who had spared one of their own, the symbol of an idea that had divided a species. Elar stepped forward and spoke in careful English. "Captain Ryan Hale, you are known among my people as the Merciful One. Your act changed the heart of our soldiers. You ended our chains of hate. Today, I ask, will your kind stand beside us? As equals?" Hale took a deep breath. He could feel the weight of every life lost in the war pressing on him. "Commander," he said slowly, "I didn't come here to rule or to lead. I came because one life spared is worth more than 1,000 taken. If peace is truly what you seek, humanity will help build it." Elar bowed deeply. "Then let this be the first day of a new alliance." Applause echoed through the chamber. The words had power, real power. For the first time, Threxan leaders and human diplomats stood together under one light, but not everyone celebrated. From the high balconies, shadowy figures watched, old warlords wearing the dark crests of the former empire. Their eyes glowed with hatred. That night, as the peace celebrations filled the city, Hale stayed in his guest quarters overlooking the glowing skyline. He couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Karen entered quietly. His tone was urgent. "Captain, we need to move you now." Hale turned. "What's going on?" Karen's eyes flicked toward the window. Scouts intercepted encrypted signals. "The old guard, they're coming for you." Before Hale could respond, an explosion rocked the distant towers. The building's lights flickered. Sirens howled through the night. "Go!" Karen shouted. They ran through corridors as blasts shook the walls. Threxan soldiers loyal to the new peace fought back the attackers, warlords desperate to stop change. Through smoke and chaos, Hale and Karen reached the evacuation deck. A young Threxan soldier blocked their path, shaking with fear. "Where is Commander Elar?" Hale demanded. "He's defending the council hall," the soldier replied. "He told me to get you out alive." Hale gritted his teeth. "No, I'm not run." The city of Threx Prime burned like a dying star. Explosions echoed through the metallic skyline, lighting up the night in flashes of red and gold. Smoke rose high into the sky, and below it, human and Threxan soldiers fought side by side for the first time in history. In the heart of the chaos, Captain Ryan Hale stood among the ruins of the council hall. His arm was scorched, his face streaked with dust and blood. But his eyes, those calm, unbroken eyes, still carried purpose. Beside him stood Karen, his armor cracked and smoking, and Commander Elar, limping but alive. They had survived the first attack, but this was far from over. "Reports say the warlords have seized the orbital platforms," Karen said, scanning the smoke-choked horizon. "They're raining fire on the city from above." Elar slammed his fist into a broken console. "They mean to burn everything, to erase this new peace before it begins." Hale steadied himself against the wall. "Then we stop them, together." Elar turned to him, disbelief in his eyes. "You would risk your life again for our world?" Hale gave a faint smile. "Didn't I already?" For a moment, even through the destruction, Elar almost laughed. That was the strange thing about humans. They found humor even in the ashes. Outside, gunships streaked across the sky. The horizon glowed with the light of plasma bombardments. The people of Threx Prime were panicking, fleeing into underground tunnels, clutching their young, praying to gods that had long since gone silent. But then, a sound cut through the chaos. A human dropship descending through the clouds, engines roaring like thunder. The insignia on its hull read, TSS Valkyrie. Karen's jaw tightened. "Reinforcements?" Hale nodded. Earth heard the distress signal. They sent help. The dropship landed in the square with a hiss of steam. From its ramp, armored Terran Marines poured out, helmets glinting, rifles ready. The Threxans watching froze in shock. Humans, real humans, had come to fight for them. The old Threxan warlords didn't wait. Their fleets in orbit unleashed another wave of bombardment. Bolts of blue plasma screamed down, tearing through towers and streets. The Terran Marines activated their shields, protecting as many civilians as they could. Ealer shouted orders in both Threxan and broken English, coordinating fire teams. Hale moved through the chaos like he was born for it, giving calm commands, rescuing the wounded, directing return fire with precision. He wasn't here to conquer. He was here to protect, and that terrified the enemy more than any weapon ever could. High above the burning city, aboard the warlord flagship Bloodfang, an old Threxan commander watched the battle unfold on his screens. His face twisted with rage. "This human disease must be purged," he growled. "They poison our people with weakness." His advisor hesitated. "Warlord, the people are turning. They fight beside humans now." "They silence," the warlord roared. "Then we burn the planet itself. If they wish to join the humans, they'll share their fate." He gave the order. Massive cannons began charging, enough to turn the capital into molten glass. Back on the surface, Hale felt the ground shake. A deep rumble rolled through the air. Karen looked up. "They're preparing planetary fire." Ellar's eyes widened. "They'll destroy us all." Hale clenched his jaw. "Not if we take their guns first." He turned to the Terran Marines nearby. "Sergeant, can the Valkyrie reach orbit?" "Barely," the Marine replied. "But she's armed with nukes and has shields rated for capital assault." Hale's eyes burned with resolve. "Then we take her up. We end this now." Minutes later, the Valkyrie blasted off from the surface, cutting through the clouds of fire and smoke. Hale, Karen, and a handful of Marines strapped in as the ship roared into orbit. The enemy fleet filled the stars, a wall of steel and hate. At its center, the Bloodfang glowed, its cannons fully charged. Karen looked at Hale. "That ship is twice our size." "Good," Hale said quietly. "It'll make a bigger target." The Valkyrie burst forward, weaving through plasma fire. Missiles streaked toward them, but the Terran pilot, cool under pressure, dodged and spun, returning fire with precision. "Target locked," the gunner shouted. "Do it," Hale ordered. The Valkyrie's forward launch bay opened, firing 2 tactical nukes toward the Bloodfang. They streaked across space, bright white and silent. A moment later, the enemy flagship vanished in a sphere of light. When it cleared, nothing remained but debris and silence. As the Terran ship circled back, Karen stared out the viewport. His homeworld glowed beneath him, scarred but alive. He whispered, "You saved us again." Hale shook his head. "We saved each other," the radio crackled. Commander Elar's voice came through, weak but steady. "Captain, the warlords are gone. The people, they're cheering your name." Hale leaned back in his seat, exhaustion catching up to him. "I didn't do it for cheers. I did it so no one else would have to choose between mercy and survival again." Karen smiled faintly. "You've changed us, Captain. You showed us that strength doesn't come from domination, but from compassion." Hale looked out at the stars. "Then make sure you never forget it." Hook ending. But as the ship began descending back to Threx Prime, a silent transmission pinged the Valkyrie's sensors, an encrypted Terran code not seen in decades. Hale frowned. He opened it, and his blood ran cold. It read, "Do not trust the Council. Earth's orders have changed." The Valkyrie drifted through the upper atmosphere of Threx Prime, its engines glowing faintly against the planet's bruised blue sky. Inside the bridge, silence filled the air. Only the faint hum of the ship's systems and the slow heartbeat of Captain Ryan Hale broke the stillness. The encrypted Terran message glowed on the console screen. It repeated in cold military precision, "Do not trust the Council. Earth's orders have changed." Hale stared at it, jaw tight. Beside him, Karen noticed his expression. "What is it?" Hale didn't answer right away. He copied the message onto his wrist pad, then locked the terminal. "It's from Earth Command," he finally said. "But the encryption code is old. From before the ceasefire." Karen tilted his head. "Ceasefire, you mean your war with us?" Hale nodded slowly. "Or what's left of it." The words hung heavy in the air. As the ship descended through the clouds, the city of Threx Prime came into view, scarred but alive. Columns of smoke still rose where plasma bombardments had struck, but there were signs of rebuilding already. Terran medics worked alongside Threxan healers in the streets. Human machines cleared rubble while alien engineers began restoring power. For the first time, the two species were building together, and yet something in Hale's gut twisted. That message wasn't random. Someone wanted to warn him or stop him. Later that night, Hale stood outside the Threxan Council Hall. The stars above shimmered faintly, dimmed by the planet's dusty atmosphere. Karen joined him, silent at first. Then he spoke softly. My people, they see you as a hero now. They call you the human who chose life. Hale gave a tired smile. I didn't choose life, Karen. I just refused to add more death. Karen's mandibles clicked in thought. That is why we follow you. Hale looked back toward the city. And that's what worries me. Inside the council hall, the newly formed Alliance Council gathered. Humans, Threxans, and a few neutral species who had arrived after hearing of the peace. The meeting began with applause and speeches. Elar stood proudly before the assembly. For the first time in centuries, Threxans will not raise their weapons in anger. We owe this to Captain Ryan Hale and the courage he showed when others would have chosen hate. The crowd erupted in approval, but Hale barely heard it. His eyes stayed fixed on a small data screen in his hand, still replaying the encrypted Terran message. When it was his turn to speak, he rose slowly. I didn't come here to be celebrated, he said quietly. I came here because I believed peace was possible. But peace isn't born from speeches. It's born from trust, and right now that trust is fragile. He looked at the humans in the back row, Terran officers recently arrived from orbit. Their faces were cold, unreadable. After the meeting, one of those officers approached him. A woman, Major Lexa Ward, Earth Command Intelligence. Her uniform was pristine, untouched by war. Captain Hale, she greeted curtly. I see you've been busy. Hale didn't smile. You saw the message, didn't you? Ward's eyes flicked toward the corridor cameras. Not here. Follow me. They walked down the dim hallway until they reached a private chamber. Ward closed the door and activated a jammer field. Then she turned, face hard. The message was real. Earth Command intercepted transmissions from Threx Prime's network. Someone or something is manipulating your peace. Hale frowned. Manipulating how? Ward leaned forward. Your new friends, the Threxan Council. They've been contacting the Galactic Union, offering to trade Terran technology for membership. Karen, who had followed quietly, stiffened. That's not true. Ward gave him a sharp look. I have proof. Data packets encoded in your own planetary systems. You think your people rebuilt the comm relays? They're relaying everything to the Union. Earth isn't happy. Hale exhaled slowly. So what's Earth's response? Ward's eyes darkened. They're sending a fleet. Officially for security operations. Unofficially. She paused. To re-establish control, Slent. Then Karen slammed his fist into the table. Control? After all we've done to rebuild? Ward didn't flinch. Earth doesn't want another rival species rising with their weapons. Hale stepped between them. Enough! I'll speak to Earth Command myself. Ward shook her head. They won't listen. You defied orders. You sided with aliens. To them, you're compromis.